So when I say that this one is about courage, I am not talking about you need to have the courage to speak up in favor of the gospel when you're surrounded by people who are non-believers. And I'm not talking about the kind of courage that you need to speak up for someone who's being targeted or picked on or not treated right at a tournament. Those are both important, but the kind of courage that I think we sometimes overlook and lose track of in forensics is the courage to take the advice that your elders and that your coaches are giving you and to keep it at enough of a distance that you don't get to the end of your career and have regrets over the things that you didn't try. So the first premise that I think you need to grasp to get my drift is that absolutely every time you hear someone say, that's a really bad argument if you're in debate, or that's a really bad performance choice if you do interp, or that's really bad anything when it comes to putting together a platform, you need to keep in mind that what they are doing is they are expressing their taste. They're expressing their preference. And what they are not doing is they are not telling you an invariant Newtonian law of the universe. Well, much of what Newton came up with is a little out of date at this point, but they're not telling you something that is immutable. And really, everybody who has ever innovated, everybody who's ever brought about a breakthrough, who's ever taken forensics and gone a leap forward by doing what nobody ever thought could be done, they had to go through a period of their coaches and their teammates and people they looked up to telling them, that's ridiculous, that won't work, don't do that. And what you have to remember is people sometimes say that something won't work or they don't like it because they've just never seen it. And maybe you have a vision in your head of something that you really want to try, and maybe not something that you would want to stake the highest pressure round of your entire career on. But if you look back after your time in forensics is up and there was something you always wanted to do and you never quite got around to it, that is in certain measure tragic. Now, I have to put a big old disclaimer on this idea, which is to say, what I am talking about is breaking the rules creatively. I am not talking about being clumsy, refusing to take coaching, and doing a job below what you're capable of because you don't even know what the rules are. And when I have this talk with people that I've coached in the past, I show them a lot of paintings by Pablo Picasso, but then I also have them take a look at his painting from earlier in his career entitled Olga in an Armchair. And there were a lot of people who said that Picasso painted the way he did because it was a huge scam and because that's just the only way he could get attention and have a successful career as a painter. But Olga was his first wife, and if you look at the painting he painted of her, oh, he was perfectly capable of doing beautiful representational paintings, and he could have had a career consisting only of that. But he, through his thinking about Cubism and what he could do with a Cubist style of painting, he knew that it would make sense to some people but not to others. And he knew that he could capture something that painting up until that time simply hadn't, and that really it could be a breakthrough. So, if you've got an approach to your event, and you can see very clearly in your head how you want it to go, or maybe even you don't entirely see it clearly, but it fascinates you and it attracts you, and you keep working on the way that you would execute it, and you work on the explanation, and you get to the point where you think you could see her all the way through to the end game, how in the last rebuttal you would sell this and try to make it persuasive. I would say that it is an experience you should have in forensics, that you should do something that you've been told your entire career is a bad idea, and you should have the courage to step out and do it. Because, among other things, not only does that mean that you leave it all on the playing field, but for all of us collectively, those great ideas that get put down until we see them in action and see how good they could be, those are what move the activity forward collectively. And there are all kinds of ideas that came into debate because someone was willing to be daring and to do that. So fiat. We first had fiat because someone first took the trouble to explain fiat. We first had counterplans. We first had critiques because there were people who made an argument and they were prepared to have at least some judges tell them, well, that's just not how debate works. And their implicit answer needed to be, well, hear me out, and maybe when we're done, it's the way that it will work. So the kind of courage that it takes to stick up for the gospel and the kind of courage it takes to stick up for people who are not at the top of the hierarchy in the forensics community, those are important kinds of courage, but those are ones that I think we talk to each other about a lot. What I want to encourage you to do is watch for an opportunity if it presents itself. Don't go out and create a mess like this if you don't really have a good idea in mind, but watch for an opportunity if it presents itself, and don't be timid. If you have something that you think is a departure, but it's something that's a really attractive idea to you and something that you just fantasize about trying, pick your spot, consult with your partner, assuming you're in an event where there is a partner, whether it's Duo or Team Policy or Parley, and make sure that they know what you're going to do and that you're not taking away their opportunity or unnecessarily constraining their experience, but then go out and take a risk. Because if you're one of the people who moves all of us forward because an argument that we never thought could be a viable argument, when you execute it, it suddenly falls into place, that's something that blesses all of us.